Most think this is a tale of divine triumph. It is not. Aldrich, devourer of souls, last gods gasp, trapped in did not paint paradox, a paradise, painted a prison. Pigment, it is not, devourer of souls, last gods gasp, trapped in did not paint paradox, a paradise, painted a prison. A gods cheat on death, to live in color not flesh, but even art decays. What remains when the final stroke fades? What if the painted world's endless murals are not a paradise, but a prison for a god's soul trapped in pigment? A mare betrayed by Marika's cycle sought escape through art, each brushstroke a spell, each hue a chain. To live beyond the Erdtree's decay, but color crumbles, vows in paint cannot hold what flesh could not. The final stroke fades, and the god once vast is unmade, a whisper on a wall, a lesson, even immortality bleeds. What remains when the last pigment cracks? Aldrich did not build Ariamis to escape death, he built it to defy Marika's shattering. After Godwin's soul was torn asunder, the Elden Ring fractured, a god's brush became his weapon. He painted a world to trap his own essence in pigment, each mural a cage, each hue a spell to cheat the cycle. The murals breathe, they bleed, they remember. Aldrich's rebellion was not against death, but against erasure. He drowned his soul in lakes of ink, forged mountains from crushed lapis, made forests from strokes of vermilion. But paint fades, and gods cannot cheat the weight of their own hubris. Marika's shattering was a clean break. Aldrich's world is a wound that will not close. His pigments crack, revealing the void beneath. The bleakness in his dream was never peace, it was the hollow where his soul should be, a god unmoored. A prisoner in his own masterpiece. The item descriptions whisper truth, devourer of gods, not by hunger, but by failure. He devoured himself stroke by stroke to outlast the cycle, yet the murals hunger now, they peel, they weep, they unravel. What does a god become when his art outlives him? Not a king, not a legend, a stain, a whisper. A lesson, even eternity has a palette, and every color dries to dust, the cycle turns, the ring reforms. Ariamis remains a tomb, not a triumph, a god's final work, a prison where the painter is the prisoner. And the walls are still bleeding. Each mural was a cathedral of color, strokes of gold, crimson, azure, Aldrich's soul laid bare in pigment. For an age, the painted world pulsed with impossible life. Figures in the frescoes breathed, stars in the ceilings burned, rivers on the walls flowed with liquid light. The laws of the lands between bent, as if the Elden Ring itself wept to be defied. Artists, poets, Circe came to witness divinity made visible. Their praises echoed through halls that sang with the weight of eternity. But beauty here was a fragile thing. A god's defiance could not outlast the void. The colors began to dim. The figures stiffened, the rivers slowed, then congealed. What once was life became a static scream. Aldrich, the painter, now painted into the prison of his own making. His soul, fractured in the pigments, could not escape the canvas. The painted world, once a testament to eternal art, now stands as a silent elegy. A god's final work, a monument to hubris. The walls, once vibrant, now bleed only in memory. The fracture that birthed the painted world was not creation, it was a wound. Marika's shattering of the Elden Ring wasn't just betrayal, it was a last gasp of a dying god. Godwin's soul murder had ruptured the laws of grace, destined death and regression. The Elden Ring, codex of cosmic order, could not contain a deity who refused to die. Ariamis became Marika's tomb. Not a paradise, a pigment-bound purgatory, every brushstroke a stolen breath, every hue a trapped heartbeat. She painted herself into eternity, but the canvas could not hold what the lands between rejected. The laws of the lands between were not broken, they were enforced. The painted world's colors now fade, its skies crack. Its figures blur, regression claims even gods. Marika's defiance birthed a prison where time gnaws at pigment, where her soul drowns in its own art. The Elden Ring was never meant to be broken. It codified the lands between submission to the greater will. What does a god do when death is not an end but a correction? She cheats, she paints, she fails. The painted world is not art, it is a requiem for a lie, a soul unraveling one stroke at a time. The lands between remember, the fracture remembers. And the laws that bind all things silent, unyielding turn their gaze to the next who dares to defy them. But the ruin you walk through is later, the wound widened. The painted world's hues bleed to gray not from time, but the hunter's shadow. Ariamis' dying breath, trapped in pigment, suffocating as its vessel cracks. A god's final cheat, to paint eternity only for the canvas to rot, no paradise. Only a soul splintered in color, fading as its defied laws close in. The painted world's colors bled into gray. Aldrich's soul, stretched thin across every brushstroke, gasped as the canvas cracked. The frenzied flame devoured his borders, its wildfire refusing to distinguish tyrant from victim. The moon presence, hollowed by its lost child, carved a new air from Stonionly to watch it shatter mid-prayer. Aldrich painted faster. He painted cities collapsing into their own shadows, painted gods gnawing their own wings to survive. But the murals were no longer his, they were a tomb, each stroke chipped away his name. The last who tried to hold it was Aldrich, fingers raw, screaming into pigment. The first who left was the moon presence's stone child, its broken body used to seal the painted world's gates. A sacrifice, a betrayal, the flame came next. It laughed as it unraveled the laws Aldrich had trapped. It burned the moon presence's surrogate to ash, then the myrrh. The flame came next. It laughed as it unraveled the laws Aldrich had trapped. It burned the moon presence's surrogate to ash, then the murals. Now the painted world hangs in a breath between creation and collapse. Murals crack like parched lips. Colors leach into gray pigments poisoned by the god's dying breath. The air hums with static, a lie too brittle to hold. When the hunter steps near, the fade quickens. Aldrich's soul, trapped in ochre and lapis, recoils from the living. Each brushstroke the hunter makes peels back the veneer. What was once a sanctuary of eternal art is now a rotting diorama. Frozen figures in the frescoes twitch at the edges, their painted mouths half screaming. The cold seeps in where the flame failed. Ice blooms at the canvas seams, glazing over the god's final masterpiece. The hunter's shadow falsh is no savior but a chisel. With every step the lie thins. The world's light is not divine but a flicker in a crypt. What waits beneath the pigment is not beauty. It is a corpse in a frame and the colors fading. They are the last gasp of a god who learned too late. Art cannot cheat the reaper. Aldrich, the architect who built a gilded cage of pigment and pigment alone, his brushes did not paint the imprisoned. Each stroke a shackle, each hue a hunger. The devourer of gods left no corpse, only a world where death's shadow could not reach until the canvas itself began to rot. Marika, who carved her defiance into the laws he forged. She shattered the Elden Ring not to rebel, but to unmake the prison Godwin's killers had become. Her stars fell not as judgment, but as a mercy to what had once been a god. And the nameless one whose title was stripped when its voice was. Trapped in every stroke of every mural, its breath is the wind that stirs dry pigment. It dreams of flesh. It dreams of rot, it dreams of the reaper's scythe as a gift. Aldrich's world was never art. It was a tomb. Marika's rebellion was never rebellion. It was the first crack in a sarcophagus. And the god without a name, its final masterpiece, was not immortality. It was the moment it stopped breathing. The painted world is not a sanctuary. It is a canvas of ash, every color a requiem, every shadow a dirge. And the colors fading, they are the last gasp of a god who learned too late. Art cannot cheat the reaper. Each blade, each shard is a confession etched in failure. The armor, its lacquer cracked like ancient skin, holds no warrior's prettianly the hollow ache of a soul that painted itself into a corner. The brushstrokes in the murals are not celebration, but a wail thesaurus of reds and golds screaming asterisk I was here. I was here, asterisk the weapons bear runes that do not bless, but bargain. Their inscriptions whisper of a god who traded breath for pigment, believing eternity could be bottled in a pallet. Yet the colors fade, the gold flakes, the crimson bleeds to rust. What did the god bargain away to keep his art from dying, his own life, his own death? The painted world was never a gift, it was a gambit. A prison built in reverse walls of color meant to hold time at bay, not souls within. But art cannot hold what it cannot contain. The god's essence seeped into every stroke, every shadow, until the murals became his tomb. The final artifact tells the truth no elegy could, a brush broken mid-stroke, its bristles frozen in the act of creation. A god gasping as his masterpiece became his shroud. What is a painted world, if not a lie in pigment? A soul trapped in the illusion of foreverly to find forever is a mirror, and mirrors crack. Aldrich's brush did not paint a heaven, it painted a tomb. Where Gwyn's fire forged an age that starved itself to sustain a lie, Aldrich's pigments birthed a world that starved its maker. The murals breathe, but they do not live. Each stroke imprisons a fragment of his will, a god's final gasp rendered in ochre and shadow. To cheat death, he became the canvas. To defy time, he became the static frame. But art is not eternity, it is a mirror, and mirrors crack. The painted world is no sanctuary. It is the inverse of the lands between where inheritance binds. Here, creation becomes the binding. Gwyn's embers, Marika's fractured stars, Aldrich's pigments all are the same hubris, to grasp the infinite, to cage it, to claim it as heirloom. Yet the infinite does not inherit, it consumes. The mural's motion is not life but a shiver, the last reflex of a dying god's dream. What Marika shattered in her wars, Aldrich foresaw in his pigments. His world is the proof divinity when painted does not transcend, it decays. The greater will tolerates no cheaters. Gwyn's age collapsed, Marika's starfield splintered, Aldrich's masterpiece. A fresco of rot, its colors the stains of a soul leaching into the void. The painted world is not art. It is a wound, a god's final breath, trapped in a loop. To walk its halls is to witness the price of a soul's last stand against death, against oblivion, against the truth that even gods cannot outpaint the end. What if the painted world's murals are not an end, but a prelude? Aldrich's brush sought divine immortality, pigment as prison, color as chains. His soul bleeds across Ariamis, a god trapped in his